Hey, what's going on, everyone? We're going to be talking about 19.3 today, warm-ups, tips, and strategy. But before we get there, my name is Dave. This is Nast. We are from CrossFitStore.com, StructureYourStrength.com, as well as HappyGoRun.com. Now, we've been doing these videos for a few years now. We get a lot of great feedback from everyone. Really like it. If you guys could help us out, right down below. If this video has helped you and you want to help us out, please click subscribe. So go ahead. I'll wait a second. Click it. And share with your friends, all right? That will really help us out. The more people we can help out, helps us out too. And we love hearing how you guys are doing. What part of the warm-ups, the strategy helped you. So it's been fantastic. We really appreciate it. So now 19.3 is a 10-minute time cap. We have 200 feet of dumbbell overhead lunges. It has to be in 25-foot increments. 50 dumbbell box step-ups. And for some reason, Dave Castro decided to keep it one dumbbell instead of two, making it light and fast. It's a nice little leg pump at the beginning. 50 strict handstand push-ups, which I'm so happy they're strict, and 200-foot handstand walk. Now, if you watched Alessandra Pacelli and Lauren Fisher, they were through the handstand push-ups, I don't know what the time was, but it was less than halfway through the time cap. Somewhere around halfway, something like that. And then you watch the normal people go, and then you get through the 50 strict handstand push-ups. So if I were you, if you're part of that 99% people out there who are not planning to do it, or crush the handstand push-ups because you don't do them strict often, because a lot of times CrossFitters love kipping. A little too much kipping is going to mess you up in this workout. We want to pace for the tie break. In other words, not really pace. And then it's about making sure those handstand push-ups are good. But before we get there, let's talk about a warm-up that's going to prep you. Now, first thing we're going to do is just 10 alternating Samson lunges. This is old school CrossFit warm-up. We're still going to do it a little different. So Nast is going to help me out. She's going to take a big old step, bigger than what you're going to do in a regular lunge. Go ahead, take a big step. We didn't practice this. She's going to reach overhead. Now, I'm purposely having her go into kind of a little bit of an overextension. We want to make sure that you feel stretched down in your hip and your quad, your hip flexor, whatever you want to call it. We want to reach. She's going to stand up, take another step. Go ahead. The barbell's in the way. Take a step, reach overhead, and you can relax. Now, 10 of those. Now, that overextended position is something we don't want to do when we have the weight in our hand. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. Next, we have 10 lateral box step-ups or step-up and overs. So Nast is going to come over to the box, and you can face the camera. It is okay to go fast up, so go ahead, try and go fast up. She's going to step over and then go slow on the way down. And we're going to warm up by centrically loading a little bit longer time frame. Just helps prep your knees for all the step-ups you're about to do. Make sure you're going hips back a little bit. Let's get those glutes working so it's not just all quads. And you can relax, Nast, thanks. Next, we have 10 landmine press per side. Now, we recently did a video on this, and the reason we're doing this is we want to be able to load pressing overhead, right, while bracing hard enough that we actually get a little bit of a stretch and a lengthening in our lat while we're loaded. And the reason being, again, is when we get to those overhead walking lunges, we don't want to get stuck in that overextended position. So Nast is going to grab this barbell. She's going to brace her abs, kind of pull that rib cage down, exaggerate a little bit, press overhead, and drop her chest forward. And she's going to get a nice stretch down her lat, slowly come back. And notice how we're just using an empty barbell. You can load it up a little bit if you want to. Press and hold, feel it. A little bit of a stretch overhead, and come back down. We got 10 of those. You can relax, thanks, hon. All right, 10 landmine presses per side. And then we're going to go 10 overhead walking lunges with a 35 and 20. This is set up for anyone that's going RX. 10 step-ups with a 35 or 20. And we'll talk about dumbbell placement. 5 negative only handstand push-ups, 10 walking lunges with that 50 or 35, 10 step-ups with a 50 or 35, and then 3 to 5 strict handstand push-ups depending on how you are with them. Now, if you were that person where like 3 of them was going to completely crush you, don't worry, we're not going to do 3. You can drop it to 1 or 2. We just want you to get comfortable with your hand placement, know where you're going to be at with the movement. Because the rule is on the strict handstand push-up, your feet at all times must be inside your hands. So if you're one of those people that go into the flying V with your legs as you press up, you're going to get no rep on it every time this year because there's a 36-inch by 24-inch space for your hands, and your feet have to stay inside that as well. So now, when it comes to strategy on this workout, it's a 50-pound dumbbell overhead walking lunge, 35 for the ladies. That should not be a heavy weight anymore because that was a standard 50 pounds, 35 pounds. Everyone in CrossFit's been doing that for a little while. Hopefully you've done that. It shouldn't be a big surprise that something like this popped up in the open. Now, what we want to be careful of is that when we take this step, that if I'm tight, that I don't get into this with the weight actually in my hand and I'm blowing up my back. All right? Now, for anyone that has issues with overhead position, watch out in this workout. It's not worth it to crush your back and miss 19.4, miss 19.5, end up having issues more long-term because you pushed a bad position. All right? Me personally, what I'm gonna do on these lunges and what I recommend for just about everyone else, since you have to turn around every 25 feet, you should have planned practice short transitions on them. So what I mean is, when I get over that 25-foot mark, am I just turning around and going? Also, quick recommendation, turn to the side that has the dumbbell so the dumbbell stays in one place. You don't wanna have it on the outside like I did at first. Am I gonna be switching hands? When am I gonna switch hands? What is gonna be my plan going into it? So I'm not kind of fumbling around with that dumbbell, wasting a bunch of time. Because I believe that the beginning of this is more like a sprint. Personally, that's the way I feel about it. If 50-35 is really heavy for you, it's gonna be a different story. Now, when we get to the 50 dumbbell box step-ups, the great news is we can hold it anywhere we want, okay? Now, the only rule is on the lunges and the step-ups, you can't use your opposite hand to help push off. So you can hold the dumbbell here, you can hold the dumbbell up here, you can hold it like this. Some people are holding it with one hand here, one hand here. Some people are going behind the neck. Whatever it happens to be, just make sure it's a position that you don't have to think about and is just comfortable enough that it doesn't bother you to stay there for all 50 steps. Ideally, we're not switching the dumbbell during these 50 steps. Now, the other tricky part is I come up, everything must be open, both feet must be fully on the box, and when I step down, what a lot of people will do, and this is going to eat up a ton of time, is this foot's going to come back, and then they're going to step forward again. Instead, we want almost like a touch and go, a tap and go box step up, where I step up, everything's open, tap. And when this foot taps, I'm gonna step right back up, all right? So be careful with that. Again, dumbbell position, play with it. You want that planned. You don't want to just kind of wing it. Now we get to these handstand push-ups. We already talked about, hey, have your feet inside your hands. That might be new for some of you. I would also look up the rule and learn out at the bottom if your butt's allowed to touch the wall, because a lot of times we're strict, it's only feet are allowed to touch the wall. I have to look that up. Excuse me. So, and we also want to stay way under our max. And we don't want to rest at the top of the handstand push-up. We see a lot of people, especially in workouts here, where they're pausing at the top, but you have handstand walking right afterwards. So we want to limit the time under tension. So if that's 3 and off, do it. 2 and off, do it. 5 and off, whatever it is. We don't want to hang out here trying to squeeze out reps. It's not worth it to go into handstand walking with your shoulders blown up and a ton of time under tension. Now, handstand walking, if you haven't been practicing it tired, good luck, all right? There's no way around this. You want to limit those no reps as much as possible, where you're kind of getting stuck in different places. You want to plan this out, drop before you get dropped, right, by the handstand walking. And if you didn't practice this beforehand, there's not much we can help you with, all right? This is pretty much you just knowing your body and not pushing your limits too much till the very end. Now, if you're one of those people that get to the handstand walking, hey, in my opinion, you're doing fantastic, all right? This workout is a lot harder than it looks. We have quads, overhead holds with the dumbbell are going to blow up your shoulder, strict handstand push-ups, 50 of them is a decent amount for most of us, and then right into that handstand walking again, lots of shoulders blowing up. So if you're like me, where you go to CrossFit gym, you're not really trying to compete to the games, but you want to do your best in this, sprint those first 2 movements, know yourself in the second 2. Because remember, there's a tie break time right here. I'm going to hammer those first 2 minutes best I can, move at the best pace I can without getting no reps, especially on those step-ups. Just let it burn. It'll be okay. All right? Now, every week we go over kind of modifications for moms and new moms, so I'm going to be done, and Nast is going to let you know what's up.
Hey guys, I'm Nast, not Dave. All right, I'm here at CrossFit SOAR. I'm the founder of Happy Go Run, and I'm also a trainer that specializes in working with prenatal and postpartum mamas. All right, so today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the modifications that we're going to be using for our prenatal and postpartum mamas, all right, for 19.3. So let's start. We have 10 minutes of work here, all right? In the first section, we have 200 feet of overhead dumbbell lunges, all right, with one arm. So what we're doing here is we're keeping the 200 feet, all right, but we're just adding a time cap. So we're making this a 2-minute time cap here, all right? I also want to encourage you guys to take scheduled breaks. The way we take breaks in this gym is we usually do it with our breath, all right? So we're going to suggest, every so often, let's stop and take 5 breaths, all right? Usually what I like to do, I wrote it down here, but we want to keep it at conversational pace. So what I do is I ask our mamas different questions like, hey, what's your name? Where were you born? Sing happy birthday for me, just to make sure that they're able to speak while they're moving, all right? So that's just a great way to talk to your mamas, all right? So front rack or no weight, all right? So I know a lot of people are going to be using a dumbbell, but let's consider some other options. You can hold the dumbbell in a front rack position, or you can use no weight at all, all right? You have your belly as a weight if you're pregnant. Let's just think about that. And then the last thing is there's no need to go all the way down, all right? So when we're lunging, a lot of times, we have to make sure that we touch our knee to the ground. But for some women, taking a nice big step, a nice big lunge, puts a lot of pressure on our pelvic floor, all right, especially if there's other symptoms involved there. So if you're not able to, just go as far as your range of motion and your strength allow, all right? I would suggest if you have any pain, not to do it at all, but if you're going to do it, make sure you're smart about it, and maybe don't use any weight, all right? And we didn't mention this last time, but if you do experience any sort of pain or discomfort, please see a pelvic floor PT or a practitioner. We want to make sure that you guys are safe first and foremost, all right? Next up, we have 50 box step-ups, all right? Kind of like the overhead dumbbell lunges, we put a little time cap on this, 2-minute time cap, all right? Once 2 minutes is up, let's move on, all right? You can also go for a lower box. So kind of like we were talking about, the lunges might be painful or might be uncomfortable. If you go for a lower box instead of stepping up really high, so if you come up here, you have a big old belly, right? And this is too high for you and you're really struggling to get up and just going up with poor form, let's get a lower box, all right, and slow it down. So those are the first two movements. Next up, we have 50 strict handstand push-ups. I don't expect a lot of our mamas, actually any of our mamas, to do strict handstand push-ups. It's not because they can't, it may be because it's not appropriate for them, all right? So what we're doing is we're switching it to 50 box push-ups. Now you might be saying 50 box push-ups is still a lot. Yes, it is. All of this is a lot, all right? But what we're doing here is we're taking mandatory breaks every 5 repetitions. With what? Again, going back to our 5 breaths, all right? So every 5 reps of the box push-ups, we're gonna stop, we're gonna pause, we're gonna have mom just take 5 deep breaths in through her nose and release, all right? That'll not only just help her recover, it'll just cause her nervous system to just calm down a little bit, all right? So those are the first 3 movements that we recommend. Notice that there's a line here, all right? We do not suggest doing the 200-foot handstand walking, all right? I know some people are gonna switch it to the bear crawl. That's one of the modifications. If you absolutely must do the bear crawls, and I know I'm gonna get some messages about that, just make sure you take scheduled breaks, all right? So the CrossFit standard is hips are above the shoulders. What this does, it's gonna jack up your heart rate, guys. So again, take scheduled breaks. Maybe the intensity is too high. Maybe get rid of this section altogether. That's really up to you, and maybe having a real conversation with your trainer, all right? So these are some of our tips. I'd love to know what you guys are planning to do with your athletes, and if you're the athlete, I'd love to know what kind of modifications you'll be doing. And again, just a reminder, conversational pace throughout. Can you sing the ABCs throughout all of these movements, whether you're prenatal and or postpartum, all right? And again, or not again, I don't think I mentioned this, but you want to remember why you're training. What is the intention of all of these movements? If you're pregnant, you're training for the biggest fitness event of your life. This is like the Super Bowl of your life, which is birth, all right? If you're postpartum, remember, you're healing, okay? So again, any questions, please message me, nast@crossfitsword.com, and good luck on 19.3.